Hey, book lovers, we are Ellen and Sarah, and this is Besties and Books, where we drink wine, share laughs, talk fantasy, and all the stories that steal our hearts. Today, we will be reviewing our monthly readings. So, we have 4 books that we will be discussing, and we have not previously discussed them. So, I'm very excited to hear what Ellen has to say.
And actually, we'll be reviewing 6 books this month because Sarah read an extra 2 books and didn't tell me.
Luckily, you'd already read them, though.
Exactly, but I'm so excited because this is one of my favourite duologies, and so we'll get into that and we'll review that as well. So 6 books total, and I think this is our biggest monthly reading wrap-up yet. So, super excited. With that being said, let's get into book 1, and we have Reign of Shadows and Endings by Melissa K. Roerich.
Wow.
We're off with a bang. Okay, so this is a very, very dark fantasy romance. So in this book, we are following Tessa. Now, Tessa is a fae, and I can't remember if it was every year or every 5 years or something, there's a ceremony called 5 years, called a selection ceremony. And in that ceremony, certain fae are selected, usually the ones that are anticipated to have a lot of power, to become a source for a legacy. And a legacy is equivalent to like a demigod. And what that means is that fae becomes basically a slave to the legacy with their magic. So the legacy can draw on the fae's magic to power their own magic. But it means that fae don't have any say over their own lives, and they have to stick by as the source, they have to stick by their legacy no matter what. So we're following Tessa, and unexpectedly she is chosen as a source to the heir of the Arius kingdom, and his name is Theon. And the whole book, this is a 750-page book or whatever, it's long, is based around her fight to not be the source for Theon. Mm-hmm. That is a really brief synopsis. So how about you go first, Sarah, with what you thought?
Okay. Well,
wild,
if I could just start with my sort of cynical summary of the book, it felt like 700 pages of Tessa being mentally and emotionally abused by everyone, and Theon expecting her to submit and even be grateful for her magical enslavement.
Even on that, let me read a quote because it goes exactly to what you just said, and I had to write it down, and I was like, oh my God, I need to
I read a few things down, actually.
So the quote that stuck out to me was Theon saying to Tessa, "You are forcing me to treat you as property." The gaslighting, the manipulation, the emotional damage,
Yeah. Oh, there's one I wrote down as well. I don't want you scared of me. I just want you to submit. Like, he was just... Oh my God. Anytime he did the whole, like, touch her and you die type line, that's in a lot of these romantasy books and is usually done in a romantic way. Anytime he did it in this book, I was like, yuck, yuck, yuck. Like,
yeah.
Just get stuffed. And then he would come back around and go, good girl, good girl, good girl, in his patronizing way, or we're going to talk about this tonight. And they often never talked about it. I think he said that to about 50 times. We're going to talk about this tonight.
Oh, he kept calling her beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
Like within 10% of the book, he was calling her beautiful and pulling her into his lap and stroking her hair. Like, I wanted to throw up.
Yeah, I'm like, you've lied to her, you've abused her, you've manipulated her. You don't get to say that to her.
I never hated an MMC as much as I hate him.
Agreed.
Ever.
Yeah, agreed.
Like, you think Tamlin is bad? Akatar Girlies? Wait till you meet Theon.
Yeah.
I don't think you're ready for Theon. Like, he is revolting.
Yeah.
Revolting. And I kept waiting for the redemption arc. I kept waiting for it.
So did I.
It never happened.
Yeah. So there was one scene, like, he controls so much of what she does, what she eats. She's not allowed to eat a donut. who she calls, like she can only call pre-programmed numbers. He controls every single aspect of her life. And yet there's that one time when she leaves her phone at home and then he can't track her down and he goes ballistic at her. And I think, off, like you don't even let her without your permission. So you should be tracking if she's got her phone on her. Like if she literally gets no freedom, then that's on you. I was waiting all book, like you said, for her to just rise up and explode and do some serious damage to him.
Yeah.
And that's actually what kept me going for being like, I actually didn't particularly like her either. Like I didn't really warm to her that much. And so given that I wasn't really that invested in either main character, I was so invested in the actual just like storyline in terms of like she has got to have a comeback here. And I was hooked. I couldn't put the book down. Even though I didn't like it. But I was hooked.
I thought I had a problem.
Yeah.
I thought I had a problem. Because when I tell you guys, this is so dark that as soon as you finish this book, you have to pick up something happy and enlightening and that will pick you up. Otherwise, I just, like, this book has put me in the biggest book slump. And not even because it was that great. It's just because it was so depressing.
Yeah, what do we have? We have slavery, manipulation, gaslighting, assault, like the worst male character ever. A female character that's just continually abused for not submitting, like she's some sort of lab rat.
As well, I don't know if you picked up on this. Lab rat?
Sure.
I don't know if he picked up on this, but he kept justifying his actions by saying she was made to be a source. But even more than that, he was justifying his poor behaviour by saying at least he's not forcing her into sexual things. Yeah. But even so, he forced her into kissing. He forced her into a few other touchy-feely moments, but it was just never...
I mean, even the bond itself is
conjoining together,
forcing her. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, with this book, I cannot read another 750-page book of that. I think I will be so depressed. She has to have a redemption arc.
Yeah.
Sorry. She doesn't have to have a redemption arc. She has to destroy him in the next book.
Yes.
Otherwise, I cannot continue. And let me say, guys, this was an anticipated God tier read for me. Okay? Like, everyone is raving about the Legacy series by Melissa K. Roerich. It's like God tier. Everyone acknowledges that it's very dark romance. I wasn't expecting it to be this dark though. But to the point where I have it on my Kindle, on Kindle Unlimited for free, and I went to Harry Hartog's and bought the physical copy before I read the book, didn't I?
Oh, no.
I wanted it on my shelf because I thought
you're going to love it.
It would be the best book ever. And now I look at it and I'm like, I want to throw up.
Yeah.
This book is... But like you said, you couldn't put it down. And if she makes a comeback in book 2, because we don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I have no idea.
If she makes this epic comeback in book 2 and destroys him, I see the potential.
I just don't know how she's going to turn it around. But anyway, we'll see.
So my theory is, I feel like it could go one of two ways. He could have a redemption arc. And the reason why he's pushing her so much is that his father is just that evil and is going to destroy the entire planet, that he cannot care for Tessa's feelings because he needs her to be at her best to overthrow his father. But there's still an inner monologue with him that's happening that doesn't fit with that narrative. Or she goes super powerful, destroys the crap out of him, and their connection is more to do with fate and destroying one another. And that's why they've got this sort of pull going between them. I don't see it going any other way.
I'm hoping that she will, as they progress with the 4 marks, that they've only done, 1 or 2? Did they do 2 by the end? 2 marks.
I couldn't tell. I was so confused by the ending and what happened.
Anyway, I'm hoping that by the time they have 4, she has 4 marks. She's supposed to be like 100% under his spell, literally does everything he wants. I'm hoping there's almost like a bit of a reverse role or a bit of a neutralization. Like maybe as the marks progress and she's getting stronger, like maybe somehow he's under her influence, or she just, or she can just completely break the sort of the sway that the bond he has over her due to the bond. I don't know, the whole Bond thing. It just made me feel
but then
like
that Kristin character as well.
Yeah, I be surprised. Well, I liked him, so I hope he
Kristin plays
steps
a
up and
role.
becomes a bigger role.
With all of that being said, I think we need to rate it.
Oh, and you know, I struggled because part of me wanted to give it, because I was so hooked and I was so, you know, like if a book is not well written or if it's a bit boring, you're just like, I'm not invested. Like I felt invested in the book even though I didn't like it. And I thought that was a very unique, maybe that's how everyone feels then. I don't know. I was like, oh, this is unusual. Like you don't usually dislike all the characters in the book, but sort of something is still driving you to read it.
So initially I wrote down in my notes, no rating. I couldn't rate it. I'm still, okay. In terms of, I think I have to give it 2 ratings. And I'll explain why. I have a bitter hatred towards this book and their relationship. And so for me, it's a 1 star. However, if we're focusing on being pulled into the characters and being super invested and really wanting to know the outcome, and for 750 pages, never once being bored. Not once was I bored. It was well written. It was well thought out. The plot made sense. However, the ending fell a bit flat for me because I just didn't understand the ending. I would probably give it a 4 to 4.5 stars. So it's 2 opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah,
right?
I agree. I settled on my final rating was 3 for it. And even then I went up and down and up and down. Like sometimes I'm like, that was too generous. And then I'm like, oh, but it was like, I was hooked. It should be more than a 3. But I was like, I couldn't, I just went up and down and up and down. I was like, I just end on a 3. Yeah. I can't decide.
So we'll be definitely continuing this series. We've added a 3rd TBR jar to our monthly reading pools and it's continuing series. So this one will be in there. So we will be picking up book 2. So watch this space. Maybe book 2 will just blow everything apart and we'll be blown away.
Or if it gets worse, we might be like, we're out.
DNFing it. I'm out. I cannot read. I cannot read that relationship the way that it's going anymore. But I don't think it will continue that way after the ending. Something has to happen.
Oh, maybe book 2 is shorter. God, we could only hope. Because I actually enjoyed a lot of the plot and the background and the world and the legacy. There were a lot of elements I thought, oh, this could become a really good series. We just got to get out of this like 2-character sicko Bond thing.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed.
Okay.
All right, let's move into book 2. What have we decided?
All right, book 2. We are now going to be talking about An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. So in this book, we have a little bit of everything. We've got the chosen one elements. We have the oppressive regime, secret resistance, slave turned hero, for the beginnings of forbidden love, tests and trials, sibling bond. It is a young adult fantasy book. Our main characters, our main male and female characters, are both trapped by their circumstances. Elias is our main. Do you say main male or male main? Oh, main male character.
Main character. I'm just relieved that I'm not the only one having tongue twisters today.
Yes.
Because I am filming our previous episode. I am editing our previous episode, and the amount of times I fuck up the names in ACOTAR is horrendous. Anyway, so I'm glad it's not just me. Anyway.
Thank God.
I say male main character.
Male main, not main male.
No.
Okay, a male.
But you can say it either way. I don't know if it matters.
Anyway. Elias is a product of the ruling militant martial empire. He's a soldier in the military and is one of the best. His mother is even the ruthless military school commandant. His future is promising, it's secure, but he despises the empire and he is wanting to desert and get out of there. Leia is from the oppressed scholar people. She agrees to spy on the commandant for the rebels in exchange for their assistance in rescuing her brother from prison. Elias and Leia's paths cross throughout the book, and by the end of the book, it appears that their destinies are going to be heading in the same direction. So, what did you think? First impressions?
I really enjoyed this book. I was so gripped from the beginning. I think there was a really dramatic event within the first 10% of the book, and I was like, whoa, that was dark. That was dark, involving a child. So also, we read a lot of dark, long books.
It was an intense month.
It was, and I think that's why I'm in a slump. I need something like happy to pick me up. So, yeah, it was quite It was quite dark, but it had me gripped. And I loved the fact that we've sort of gone from Theon in Reign of Shadows and Ending, who's he's awful, to then Elias, who actually hates being part of the regime that he is. That's the super evil sort of martial empire regime. And there's friendships throughout this book as well that it just has that lightness to it. Not comedic relief. It was lacking that, but there was a lightness to it. And I actually forgot to mention that about the previous book. There was zero comedic relief in Reign of Shadows and Endings, which I would have appreciated. But for this one, also lacked the comedic relief, but there was a lot of lightness within the book with some of the relationships that were developing and happening. So I really enjoyed it. I thought it was super fast-paced. It was action-packed. There weren't really any lulls. It didn't wipe me off my feet. I wasn't, dying to pick it up every single day, sort of like I had with the Mind F series, but it was addictive enough to keep me entertained and to want to pick it up.
I was quite similar. I thought it was a solid read. I didn't have as strong a reaction as bloody Reign of Shadows and Endings.
Yeah.
But I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was super. It's interesting looking back now, because this one I read now quite a few weeks ago. Looking back on the book now, in my mind, I think, was it a little bit beige and bland? Even though because nothing sort of stands out as oh my God, these three things that happen in the book are mind-blowing.
Yes.
But yeah, when I was reading it, it never entered my mind I'm getting bored or I'm going to stop listening. I was very engrossed in the book. I thought the historical backdrop was quite interesting. They have this tension between the Scholar Empire and the Martial Empire, and we go into a little bit of background there, which I would have loved to see more of. Leia's role as a rebel, that for me was a little bit painful to read because she was so bad at it. But I think she was, she was probably meant to be bad at it, so that's probably
naive
okay.
With believing that the rebels had her best interests at heart.
I know, and then I thought there are a few scenes where the rebels seemed genuinely surprised that she'd been subject to sort of a bit of abuse in her spy role. And I'm thinking, how are you surprised? You sent it to the commandant who's known for being pure evil. So how can you be surprised? I thought the commandant was actually quite a good, as an evil character, I thought that role was well written and interesting. Yeah. The trials themselves, so Elias goes through a couple of trials. There are a few trials I thought sort of got a bit lost in what's actually happening in the trial, and which could have been because this is one I listened to, I didn't actually read. So sometimes I feel if things are happening quickly when you're listening to the book, I think you do miss a bit more than if you're reading. So that could have just been an element of the fact that I wasn't physically reading the book. But sometimes in the trials I was wait, what happened then? Rewind a few minutes. But yeah, I thought the pacing was good. It was sort of a consistent pacing the whole time. And I was quite interested it doesn't go too much into sort of the magic system, except for the fact of Elias's mask melding, the face mask melding. Yes. I thought that was an interesting concept that I'm hoping.
I thought it was cool.
I don't know. I'm hoping we'll hear more about the magic system in book 2 when we get there.
Leia, she bored me a little, she didn't bore me. Just some of her decisions didn't make sense. And I thought she was being a bit naive.
Which again was probably deliberate, I suppose. That was her.
It was deliberate, but still that naivety and that uncertainness about herself and not being that strong in a character stuck with her personality. Stuck with the story. So it made sense for her to continue that way. And I just hope there's some more growth there.
Yeah.
But overall, I really enjoyed it. I didn't love the ending, so I knocked it down a peg. But I did really enjoy it, and I'm actually really keen to read book 2, which is coming up next month. We've picked it in our TBR jar, so I'm excited to read book 2.
Yeah, woohoo. All right, should we rate it?
Yeah, let's do it.
At the same time?
2, 3.
3.5.
4 stars.
Oh, 4.
Oh, interesting. Ooh. Yeah, I liked it. All right, let's do book 3. So it's sort of Kaigan by M.L. Wang, and as far as we're aware, is a standalone fantasy. I think it was going to be a series, but she decided not to continue with it for some reason. Or he. I actually don't know if M.L. is a he or a she. It follows Mamoru, I'm sorry if I'm butchering that, who is a 15-year-old boy training to be the protege, I guess, for the family called the Matsuda. Yeah, the Matsuda family. They're basically like a warrior clan. And it also follows his mother, Misaki. And she was a warrior in a sense and trained in another country. And then her family, her father, marries Misaki off to one of the sons in the Matsuda family line to live in Kaigan. So Misaki has to give up everything to basically become a mother and produce sons for the Matsuda family. And one of those sons is Mamoru, who we also, like I said, we get his perspective throughout the story as well. Basically, war comes to Kaigan. And in terms of the magic system as well, I was a little bit confused by that, but it sounds like there's different types of magic depending on your family. It's all family based. So you don't have like fae, you don't have other magical beings. It's all dependent on your family line as to what magic you have. So that's the synopsis. Sorry, that was probably a long one. What did
I think? I thought the pacing was painful. I felt like at the beginning, you sort of get a lot of, like a big load of information up front in the first few chapters, sort of like a history lesson. It took, I reckon, 40% of the book just sort of setting the stage, getting into it, which was, for me, a little bit of a sort of slog. There's a lot of internal monologue, domestic life. You would mistake it for sort of this, for not being a fantasy book, really. But then it does kick in halfway with a punch. I think from the 40% mark, it picked up. But that halfway through, there was a good like 30 to 40 chunk that I loved and I could not put down. Yeah. And I was like, this is amazing. We sort of see the mother, Misaki, her warrior background comes in handy and she just like dominates. And I loved the scenes where this sort of housewife mum has to pull out all of her fighting skills to defend her family, and she's just like willing to go to death to defend her kids. And that for me was like, this is great. Like the middle 30% or 40% of the book, I was just like, this section is 5-star. Like I loved it. I couldn't fault it. I did love the magic system. It took me, like you said, a little while to get into it, but it's all based on sort of water and ice manipulations. The book is heavily inspired by Japanese culture and tradition, and you can like in every chapter it just sort of like pulls off the page. So I did really like that aspect because that was quite, I guess, unique in terms of a fantasy book. I don't think it was what I expected. Like if you sort of compare this to most of the fantasy books we read, like the themes that really stuck out to me were, you know, motherhood, nationalism, propaganda, you know, misogyny, grief, traditions versus change. Like the family environment is very traditional where women have a certain role that they are not allowed to step out of. And Misaki, by the end of the book, she sort of conforms to that for a lot of the book, but then she's you know, branching out of that by the end of the book. I guess it was an unexpected book for me because I didn't know anything about it going in, and I was pleasantly surprised by a good chunk of the book. But yeah, the beginning for me was a bit slow, and the last 30%, to be honest, just felt like a big long outro. Like it felt like the book finished at sort of 70 to 80%. And then we're just reading, and I think probably half of the stuff in the last third of the book was not even really relevant. They could have just completely culled.
I almost thought they were trying to set it up for book, or the author was trying to set it up for book 2 in that last bit.
I wasn't sure. I was like, where is this going? I just wasn't sure.
Yeah, totally agree about the pacing and everything like that. And the other part that I loved was that she didn't follow that traditional narrative that a mother is so obsessed with their children. As a mother, I found that hard because I'm obsessed with my children. I don't know how you couldn't be, but I love that it challenged that narrative because she was forced into this arranged marriage and she felt so disconnected from her children because she had to give everything up, and so disconnected from her husband. And the way that developed, I ate it up.
Yeah, that was done well.
Should we give a rating?
Yep.
This is another one where I found it really hard to rate.
Oh, all 4 of the books I struggled with. Okay, ready? 1,
okay. 1, 2, 3.
3.5.
3.5. Oh,
Same.
interesting. But mine was on the higher end of the 3.5 because there were parts of it, like you said, were like 5 stars, but then there were other parts that was just like, oh, if you could pull this together a bit more, it had so much more potential.
And because it was long too, I do think, probably could have cut out 20% of the book.
I can see how other people give it 5 stars.
Yeah.
A lot of people give this book 5 stars, and I can see that. I can see why.
Agreed.
I think anywhere from 3.5 to 5, you're still on point with this.
Whereas like Reign of Shadows and Endings, I cannot see how someone would give that 5 star. Anyway, let's not go there again.
It's, you know what, that book is going to annoy us until we read book 2.
Oh, yeah.
To find out what happens.
Yeah, I know. All right, book number 4. So for our non-fantasy book this month, we read The Nightingale by Kristin Hannah. This was a historical fiction novel set primarily in France in World War II. It follows the stories of 2 very different sisters, Vianne and Isabelle, as they navigate the Nazi occupation in France in their own very different ways. So Vianne is a school teacher and a mother. She's the one that keeps the peace. She wants to live a quiet life. Her husband is sent to fight, and German soldiers billet at her house, and she just doesn't want to rock the boat. She's polite to the soldiers. Whereas Isabelle, her sister, is the fiery, bold, and rebellious one. She cannot handle that there are German soldiers living at her sister's house, and she is living there for a time too, and then has to get out of there before she just gets them all into trouble. So she joins the French resistance and helps Allied soldiers escape the Nazi-occupied France by guiding them over the Pyrenees Mountains to Spain. So this book, it really focuses on the brutality of occupation for everyday civilians, especially women. There's a strong focus on women all through the book. Obviously, 2 main characters are females, and they interact with a lot of other females. So we really get an insight into war from a female perspective. So what did you think?
What did I think? Bear with me with what I thought of the first part of the book, okay? I found it a bit slow. I found Vianne a bit tedious and annoying in her denial and her reliance on her husband, Anton, to save the day. I understand why she wanted to do that, because she wanted to keep her daughter safe, and I think she had already been through one war before when she was a child, and so understood how, I guess, depressing and dark it could be, but also thought it would just resolve itself, because that was the narrative that she was told as a child, and she was obviously protected in a lot of ways from the dark elements of war. So I think she wanted to mimic that for her daughter. So that part I found hard. From the point where the Nazi moved in to her home, just knocked on the door and was like, hey, I'm moving in, like, you've got to give me room, I was like, oh my, can you imagine someone knocking on your door, the enemy, and saying, I'm moving in, give me a room, in a home where your husband is no longer there because he's been sent to the front, and you have your children?
Yep.
That is so rough. So I was really invested in where this was all going to go, but the pacing was quite slow for a lot of the book. It's so funny because it was really slow, but I was really invested.
Yeah.
So I don't know where I sit with that. There was never these big wild events. The most dramatic event, I think, happens at about 50 to 60% of the book. I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but from there, it's quite slow in its pacing. And I'll get into the ending in a minute, but I kind of want to hear what you thought before I get into what I thought of the ending.
So I agree. I thought it was quite slow. There's a lot of, at the beginning particularly, there's a lot of historical setup with the looming war, obviously, and then the background of the 2 sisters and their own sort of upbringing when they were young, which, explains why they each are the way they are. So it just felt like a lot of sort of slow build. There's a lot of just day-to-day Monday life as a mother in wartime. So obviously, the lack of food, shops closing down, sort of all the uncertainty, but it repeats it, but there's a big focus on that. So it's not, if you're expecting a sort of glitz and glamour, wartime, big bust, like all of this action wartime novel, it's not
fast-paced.
So I really appreciated that it sort of focused on resilience of women in wartime and how hard, you often think about the men going off to war and not so much about the families left behind. So I thought that aspect of it, the book did very well. But yeah, for me, it was a little bit slow. And I think I just I read this one of all the books this month. This was the last one I read. I felt like I just couldn't get into it. Like, I think like you said, we'd had a lot of big books and a lot of like dark or heavy or emotional books that I don't think I was in the mood for a wartime book. And I actually thought the whole book, I wasn't invested in either of the characters really. But I did shed a tear at the end. So I was a bit surprised, and that because I thought, I didn't.
The end had me bawling.
Yeah, I didn't actually think I was like that into the book, and then I did cry at the end. So I thought, okay, well, I was more into it than I thought. But yeah, the pacing, I felt once Isabel, one of the sisters, once she joins the French resistance, I did think, which is not a spoiler, I don't think, because it's pretty obvious on the back of the book. Yeah. The pacing picked up a little bit for me then, and I enjoyed her line. But yeah, I agree. I really struggled with the end. I struggled at the beginning when I get why she felt like she had to, allow these Germans in her home, but it didn't even seem like she questioned it. Like there was never any like initial, no, I don't want you moving into my house. And then, if they said, oh, well, we're going to kick you out, then she could let them in. Like it didn't feel like there was really any pushback. She had a young daughter, and I don't judge that. I go, I'll probably do the same thing. But yeah, I don't know. I was a bit bored with her character, really.
Yeah, I did really like there was a twist to her character though throughout the book.
Yeah,
I think the twist that I'm talking about, and after that, I was like, whoa,
yeah,
okay, she does actually have.
She stepped up a little bit in her sort of, I thought that was good too.
So there was like so many parts for me that like were, the ending I feel like was 5 stars for me, but the rest of the book is like, I don't know, but it's got 4.6 out of 1.8 million reviews.
I'm surprised because my review is much lower than that. Even though I enjoyed it, like I wouldn't read it again. I'd struggle. No. I would struggle reading it a second time. And I would only recommend it to someone if I thought that they loved like World War II historical novels.
Yeah.
Then I might suggest it to someone, but I wouldn't rate it.
I think if you enjoy historical fiction, you'll enjoy this book. And I do love a good ending. But anyway, let's get into our rating.
All right.
1, 2, 3.
3.5.
Ooh, interesting. So initially it was 3 for me, but the ending bumped it up.
Oh yeah, I was so stuck in the 3s this month. God,
we've had a few bad months. Like we need a month where it's got some consistent, at least 4 stars.
At least this current month, I think there'll be at least easy reads. Given that 2 of them are the book number 2s, so they'll be probably similar. Yeah. And then
I feel like we're turning into the BookTube channel though that tells you what not to read.
Oh well.
But no, we've got 2 more books to review. We've got a duology, so we'll do it. Oh no, we'll do it separately, I reckon, because I think for me they both landed a bit different.
Oh yeah.
And then we could talk about overall what we thought. So the duology we're going to talk about is The Crimson Moth by Kristin Ciccarelli. I love this duology so much. If you follow us on Instagram, you know that I've posted about this duology already as many times as I can. I recommend it to anyone and everyone, whether you're an advanced reader, beginner reader, YA. I think it is the perfect entry-level fantasy book. But before we actually get into what we thought, let's go into the synopsis for book 1. So book 1 was originally called The Crimson Moth, but the name was changed to The Heartless Hunter, and now the duology together is called The Crimson Moth. So in The Crimson Moth, or Heartless Hunter by Kristin Ciccarelli, we are following Rune and Gideon. So Rune is a hidden witch, and she is fighting for the witches to be freed because at the moment they're basically being killed off. And the magic system works whereby when a witch casts a spell, they have to cut into themselves before casting the spell. And so eventually what they do is, rather than just having all these sort of scars all over themselves, they create usually a pattern which forms almost like a tattoo on their body representing their magic as they cast each spell. So that's basically the magic system and the witches. And then you've got the witch hunters, and Gideon seems to be like the head of the witch hunters who are trying to find all the witches to be executed. So it's an enemies to lovers romance, and it's full of tension and angst. And yeah, that's what I tried to do, a brief summary of the synopsis. So what did you think of book one?
I thought it was great. I think especially because I read it in this intense month of intense books. And I picked up, I was supposed to be reading The Nightingale actually, and I picked up Crimson Moth and started reading it because it's been in the back of my mind for a few months since you read it. And then I couldn't put it down, and I kept thinking, stop reading it because we've got to read The Nightingale. And I think that's also why, unfortunately for Nightingale, its rating probably slipped in my mind because it was the worst of the two books I was reading at the time, and I had to go back to The Nightingale when really I wanted to be reading The Crimson Moth. But I would say it's just an easy read. There weren't any sort of ridiculous twists. There were a few twists that I thought, that was interesting, but there was nothing that sort of blew my mind. But it was just a really fun read. The characters were sort of relatable, even though they're witches and witch hunters. But I was invested in her story. I was invested in Gideon's story. You want them to come together, but how's this going to work? Because they're basically trying to kill each other. I thought, it was a really fun read, and I would definitely recommend it for anyone that's keen to dive into the romantasy world.
Yeah. And so if you're looking for something like an epic world building, really articulate fantasy, I guess, epic series, this is not the one for you. This is easy read. You're looking for a fun time. You acknowledge there's a few plot holes, but you just don't even care because it's that much fun.
Yeah.
That's how I would describe it.
Agreed.
And it's YA, I think.
I'd say so.
I'm sure it's YA. I loved it so much. I just wasn't expecting to have such a good time in a 300-page book. It's short, and it was really good. So should we give what our ratings were of this one?
Yep.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. 5
4
stars.
star.
Oh, 4. She's hot.
Yeah, I guess I am.
No, I actually understand how someone would give it 4 stars, because it's not like a Brandon Sanderson 5-star, really thought out plot wise book, right? It's not ACOTAR, but it's a really good time. And for that, because I couldn't put it down, I was excited to read it. All the things I said before, it was absolute 5 stars for me. So book 2 is Rebel Witch, and it sort of continues with Gideon and Rune's story. There's not really a lot that I can say without
I was going to say, what do we say without
book?
Spoiling?
Yeah.
We could at least say that in this one, Rune is on the run for some reason.
Yes.
And there's probably more tension now between Rune and Gideon than there was in book 1. And Rune has allied with someone, and in Gideon's mind is the ultimate worst thing she ever could have done, basically. So that sort of led to extra tension. And, I think more so than ever, Gideon is just all right, I definitely have to kill her now. He was hunting her in book 1, now he's definitely hunting her. And so there's just that extra element of tension.
So they don't come together, I would say, in book 1. That enemies to lovers tension is still very much there in book 2. I would even say all the way through to the end.
Yeah.
And I thought I would find that annoying, but I actually still really enjoyed it.
Oh yeah, I loved it. I thought it was, similar to book 1, easy to read. There's nothing overly complex. It's not going to change your life, but it's just a really fun, easy read.
Agreed. And it's another short one, so I think it's another 300 pages. So you could so easily binge this duology in a couple of days if you really wanted to.
Yeah, it's a good beach read.
Should we give a rating?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. All right. 1, 2, 3.
4 stars.
Oh,
you like the
same. How funny.
Better.
Because, maybe Rebel Witch is a 4.5, but I predicted the ending. I guessed everything about the ending, what was going to happen. So the ending really fell flat for me. But otherwise, I really loved it. And I almost want to just ignore the ending because I still really enjoyed the rest of the book. And I still enjoyed the ending. I just knew what was going to happen.
Yeah, it's sort of, if you guess that, it takes a little bit of the excitement away.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's a wrap for our June reads. So to quickly recap, we read Reign of Shadows and Endings by Melissa K. Roerich. We're going to give a official no rating, I think, for that. We read Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. That was a 4 for me and a 3.5 from Sarah. We read Sword of Kaigan by Emma Wang. That was a 3 to 3.5 read again, depending on Sarah or I. We read The Nightingale by Kristin. That was again 3 to 3.5. And the last duology that Sarah read for the month that I had already read was The Crimson Moth. And overall, Sarah gave it 4 stars. I would say it's a 5-star duology. So that's a wrap.
Woohoo. Well, that's a wrap from us today. If you enjoyed the episode, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and leave us a comment below telling us what books you are reading, because I think we need some like legit 5-star recommendations.
Please, 5-star. I need to unfollow the people that I'm following on BookTok. In fact, I am going to do a TBR jar cull. If I've had a certain person rate certain books 5 stars repeatedly in my jar that I found a 3-star or below, they're coming out. They're coming out of the jar. I'm not interested anymore. We got no time for these 3 stars. Actually, I don't mind. It's good reading books that we like love and cannot wait to recommend, and then others that are yeah. So. But I kind of want like good variety. I feel like we have a lot of 3s and then we have one really good one. Yeah, we haven't had any. Well, we haven't had any 1s or 2s, but that's probably not a surprise. Reign of Shadows and Ending could be a 1. I'm not sure. Yeah, true. But it's just funny. Like even the booktubers that I follow, the one that rated Sword of Kaigan and Reign of Shadows and Endings 5 stars is the same person that rated The Crimson Moth 5 stars. Who is that? Or do you not want to say? And that's where I would say I get most of my recommendations from. She's a big ACOTAR fan, and she loves Brandon Sanderson as well, although she has rated some of Brandon Sanderson's books in the 3s. But she mostly reads fantasy romance, and she's got this huge variety. And I love her quick sort of snappy summaries. But I feel like I've got some doozies. But I guess it all comes down to the reader, right? Sarah and I are very similar readers. Okay, so like it's all subjective. Reading is subjective. These books, I can envision someone giving them a 5 stars. Probably all of them, depending on your taste. All right. With that being said, until next time, bye.